Hi, and welcome to this vocabulary lesson because we are going to look at synonyms, collocations in context, and words that belong in the word family. I hope you'll stick around with me every single day, learn these 3,000 words with me. Once, once. This is an interesting pronunciation because I pronounce a W, but you don't see it here. So this is one of those words that you just have to memorize how it sounds. Once. It's a difficult one. Once. It can mean one time or at one time. For example, once upon a time means at one time in the past. It can mean one time, you only live once. You just live one time. No, you don't have lots of lives. It can mean a condition that happens first. Once I finish this paper, then I'm going to do this other thing. Some other synonyms for once are formerly, former, erstwhile, old or late, other or sometime. Once can function as a conjunction, and when it functions as a conjunction, it means when. Once and when are interchangeable. Once as in one time. It means something happens a single time. I've only been to Paris once. Or we can talk, if we put it once and then we use a time phrase like once a week, once a day, then we're talking about one time within a time period. For example, once a week I go to church, or once a year I celebrate Christmas. Once before can mean at one time before now I did this. Only once. That's emphasizing just one time. If I say once or twice, then that's a very common phrase. That means a couple of times maybe. I've seen him once or twice. Very rarely, but I do recognize him. And once in my life. Once in my life, I have traveled to Ecuador. Once in my life. And sometimes I might say once in a lifetime. Once in a lifetime is a collocation that means this is such a great opportunity and I am never going to see this opportunity again. It's a once in a lifetime opportunity. I'm going to take advantage of this. Once is an adverb of frequency and it tells how many times something happens. I went there once, one time. I've seen that movie twice, 2 times. She visits her parents once a month. She visits one time every month. So the connotation with once is pretty neutral. It just gives information. Once can mean formerly or in the past. Something was true in the past but is no longer true. For example, she was once a famous actress. She was once a teacher, but she's not a teacher now. Once I was a student, and now I'm a teacher. Once the leader said ... Once again. Or this is happening again. Once again, I see this phrase. It means it happens all the time. Once again, once upon a time is a very common way that we start stories, especially old stories. Was once considered. This phrase, was once considered, means that it's a phrase that we would see maybe in the newspaper or a scholarly article, and it's pointing out that in the past, this thing was widely understood and now it's changed. Was once known as. Once is an adverb meaning formerly or at one time in the past. I visited London once, one time. I was once a student in London. I used to be a student there. So you see the difference here. This usage often creates a sense of change or nostalgia. It contrasts between the past and the present. Once can mean as soon as or when. Something will happen immediately after this other thing happens. Once you finish your homework, you can watch TV. Some things we might say is once you arrive or once you finish. Once we know the extent of the damages, we can make a decision about how to proceed. Once they understand or once the meeting ends, once everything is ready. Each one of these means that after this thing happens, and immediately after this thing happens, we're going to do something else. So in this way, once acts as a subordinating conjunction and introduces a dependent clause. Its structure is once, then subject, then verb, then the main clause. For example, once you arrive, call me. Or you can say call me once you arrive. So just the same as all subordinating or dependent and independent clause structures, you can flip them. But notice when you flip them, if it's the dependent clause first, you have the comma before the independent clause. Here you have the independent clause first, no comma, then you have the dependent clause. Once you arrive, so notice with this, you don't put a will. It's used in present tense. Once you arrive, even though we intend the future, we don't use the will. We would say, once you arrive, call me. Once you finish, call me. That means the same as soon as you finish, call me. Once again means another time. It means something is happening another time, often after it has happened before. So once again, he forgot his keys. This is something that happens frequently. Once again, once more, try once again. Do it again. Try once again. Say it once again. Thank you once again. Demonstrate once again. Each one of these imply that you've done it a lot, but I want you to do it again, at least one more time. Once again functions as an adverbial phrase, and it modifies the whole sentence and means again. She called me once means she called me one time. She called me once again means she called me again. Sometimes putting the once in there expresses annoyance if it's something that they've been doing. If it's something I'm asking you to do, then I'm asking you to try again and just have a little more patience. Thank you once again for your help. That's polite and grateful. Once again, he was late. That's possibly frustrated or critical. Once in a while means occasionally. It's something that happens sometimes but not frequently. We might say once in a while. Some other things we might say are once in a blue moon. Moons are never blue, so that's very, very uncommon. Once in a lifetime, once in a great while, once in a while or it happens once in a while. One time out of a lot of times. It's infrequent. Once in a while is an adverbial phrase of frequency. It modifies the verb and means occasionally or sometimes. Once in a while, I go jogging. I go jogging once in a while. This second position here is much more natural. Notice I didn't even read it this way. I once in a while go jogging. We would never say that. When you have a phrase of time, like once in a while, even though it's an adverbial phrase, in English, it's important to put it just at the end of the sentence. That works with tomorrow, today, once in a while, every Sunday, any kind of adverbial phrase. Now, if it's an adverb, like sometimes, there's more flexibility. But if it's an adverbial phrase, just put it at the very end of each sentence. Usually, the connotation here is casually conversational. It suggests that something happens infrequently, but regularly enough to happen sometimes. So the easiest way to understand once is to look at what comes after it. If you have once and then a number, then we're talking about frequency. For example, once a week, once a year, once a noun phrase, once and then a noun phrase is talking about in the past. Once a teacher, always a teacher. That's a very common phrase. Once a teacher, always a teacher. That means she's not changing. She used to be a teacher and she's still kind of like a teacher. Once a subject, once and then subject and a verb means it's a condition once you arrive. So this thing has to happen before this thing happens. Once again means repetition and often frustrated repetition. And once in a while means occasionally. I see him once in a while. The opposite of once could be never. 2 times is twice, but we don't say twice in a while. And I am sure that if you learned English outside of the United States, you might have heard the word thrice. It is a word that used to be much more common, but now we would say 3 times instead of saying thrice. So I have heard students say thrice. I know exactly what it means, but it's not something that in North America we say very frequently. Instead, we use the word 3 times. So we'd say once, twice, 3 times. There's no noun here and no verb. No adjective. This is an adverb, once. And it has the other uses too, like the coordinating conjunction. Once. I really hope that you enjoyed this word. Research shows that if you know 3,000 words, then you can pretty much say anything you need to say. I hope I'll see you tomorrow, and please like and subscribe.